Okay, the headlights finally came in. Got those shipped from Amazon. They were originally bought from another seller off of Amazon, but they didn't actually have them in stock and were giving me the runaround. So these came in from Amazon and we got them installed. Remember, on the outboard sides of the car there, the very outside headlights on each side, that's a high/low beam. That's an H4 housing. Again, all of these housings come from Hella. But that's an H4 housing with an H4 bulb. That's kind of nice and simple. And on the inside, it is an H1 housing with a high beam only. That's just strictly a driving light, so that when I have my high beams on, those will throw a lot of light straight out there in front of me. That's essentially the same system that came on the car, with the exception of the fact that the car had sealed beam headlights on it. All right, now onto the actual headlight wiring portion of this video. Knowing that I would need a fairly long run of wire to go from the passenger side over to the driver's side, I decided to ground both headlights on the passenger side of the car, just where the stock headlight ground was there. That's going to work fine. I run what ends up being 3 power wires across the front of the car, and as you can see, I'm using a little bit of electrical tape in order to keep that nice and tight. I like to keep the wires really neat. I don't make a board or anything like some guys do for wiring harnesses. In this case, that would be totally unreasonable to put in that much work. But nonetheless, here we are using some electrical tape to get the harness all started. I have already cut these wires off generously over behind the battery, so that I know I'll have plenty of wire at the end to make my terminals attached to. But nonetheless, going to run this right across the front of the car along that bar, and I will put some wire loom over it. I want to try and keep a factory look here. So running across the front of the car, going to put some wire loom over it. We're going to zip tie it in place rather than using any sort of tape in this spot, just because it's so much more convenient. I doubt anybody will ever really look back there. You'd have to get into the car to do that. But nonetheless, I just like to be able to know that this is going to look fairly factory. And if somebody were to look at this without owning one of these cars in particular, this particular model, that they will say, wow, that looks pretty factory. Speaking of factory, here is some Audi friction tape, which I use to replicate the look of the original friction tape on our wiring harnesses. This is about the only stuff I've heard of that holds up in the long run, doesn't fade and tear and things like that. It's not cheap per roll, but it rips easily and the performance is exceptional, so that's what I use. With all that done, all that's left to do is to terminate all the wires in their respective spots in the relay blocks. If you get confused on this, you can always just go back and look at my video on how to relay your headlights. With all these things in, it's nice to just put the block where it belongs on the strut tower in my case, and then I can attach all the fuses, etc. I have gotten some battery terminals from Amazon, which allow you to I guess just slip the wire in there and crank it down with a little set screw. They're not the nicest things in the world. They were $14, and as you'll hear, I'm not thrilled with the negative terminal, but nonetheless, the general performance on these things is great. I think they carry them at AutoZone, but not O'Reilly Auto Parts. I couldn't find one there when I was in the other day, so I ordered these up off of Amazon, and honestly, with tax and everything, you're going to pay about half as much on Amazon as you would out of a local parts store. Anyway, so with that said, we're on to the final steps here, so let's have a look. Okay, we're pretty much set here. Let me see if I can get in close enough to where it'll be visible. I know this is going to be hard to see, guys. Here we are with the bank of relays. You can see we've got 6 relays across back here, one being the AC cutout, the other one being the ASD, high beams for the regular outboard lights, low beams for the regular outboard lights. Actually, this is the driving lights only in the middle, and then these are the fog lights. This is the original relay for the starter, which I've got held up there. You can see all the fuses for the high beams, low beams, fog lights, and driving lights, all connected in here with these somewhat decent terminals that I got off of Amazon. I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna have to do something about this negative terminal. It's actually cut to be a positive terminal but labeled negative. Thank you, Chinese children. Go around to the front of the car here and we'll see how visible this is in here. Not gonna lie, I think this wiring harness in here turned out pretty good. You know, whatever works, I guess, but the headlight wiring runs across the front of the car because that saves a few feet of wire versus going around the back. And there you have it. That's pretty much it. I've got it all fused and set to go. All I have to do now is clean up this horrible looking grill. I'm not sure, yeah, we probably can't see it too much. The front fascia, really just the whole deal from down at the bottom up to the header panel here just looks kind of rough. So we're gonna clean it the best we can, reinstall everything, put it back together, and see where we end up. We'll report back in a few.